A very good afternoon to you on this gorgeous June afternoon. This is a vlog about my workflow, how I go about putting an image into Lightroom, sometimes Photoshop, and hopefully regurgitating an image out the other side that that is worthy of printing. I guess that's the ultimate thing. Load your film, fill your camera, take the photo, process it, and hopefully print it. I did a previous vlog and I kind of thought back about it and I thought it was a little bit vague. So this time I thought I'd actually show you me going into Lightroom. I've chosen an image which is perhaps not such a great idea, but I've given it some thought and I thought, look, it's quite a difficult image to process because it's quite contrasty. So I thought that would be a better demonstration of how I go about doing things, rather than just doing a bog standard image that you don't really get to see too much about how I go about doing things. I've sort of scratched my head, given it some thought, and I just thought, hey, get on with it, just do it, and see what we come up with. So this is it. This is the image, as I say, taken Jardin de Luxembourg. Now, before I even put it into Lightroom, what I do is have a look at it. I've already done that, and I'm not going to film me, scratching my head looking at it. But straight away, we can say, okay, it's underexposed in the overhang areas, in the bandstand section where the couple are dancing, and it's a stop or two overexposed outside. Maybe more like a stop. But it's a digital image, and so that's absolutely perfect. I know I can lift the shadow areas. There are oodles of details in those shadow areas. When I took the image, I was mindful of the difference. So I've kind of erred on the side of caution and tried to expose for those highlight areas, even though I've gone a little bit, I've come up a little bit short. As I say, it's about a stop, I would say, overexposed. But that's not a problem. As far as I can tell, there's still plenty of detail in those highlights, and I can bring those down. However, I'm not looking to try and make an HDR image. I'm not looking to bring those values down so much and marry them up with the shadow areas. Look, that's how it is, okay? So I want the outside to look brighter than the inside. Otherwise, it would just look weird in my mind. That's not how I see it. And that's kind of the key thing here. It's how you see something and how you remember it. And for me, always, the golden rule is less is more. The less I can do to this, the better. I do not want to superimpose. The moment I think, I would have to superimpose something, or I'd have to remove something huge. No. Next image. It's failed. Tough. That's the way it is. So less is always more. But I have got to do a couple of things. Now, these things typically are not, they're not rocket science. They're basic tools in Lightroom or Photoshop. I would say that on the whole, generally speaking, I use Lightroom, but I do still use Photoshop. I still love Photoshop, but I think initially most images go into Lightroom, and I'm basically looking to not do much more than I would do if I were in a traditional darkroom. Now, that's not true entirely, because you've heard me say in previous vlogs, I don't hate 35mm, but 35mm gives you these converging lines. And I'm not I'm just not a huge fan. Okay, I'm not a huge fan of converging lines. Now, it's not terrible here, but my brain is saying just tweak it a little bit and just help the image a little bit. Give it a slightly more compressed look, which is what I'd get with my trusty 50mm. Not sure why I put a 35 on this day. I hardly ever use it, but yeah. Other than that, I'm looking literally to dodge and burn just to get those values back. But I said I spend an initial 10 or 15 minutes just looking at it, you know, can't think of the word. Just depicting the main things, as in dark and light. The main things I'm going to do, the little tweaks, but also I want to connect with it, which sounds hugely pretentious, but I don't really mean it in that sense, but I want to remember what it was that drew me to this scene in the first place. Now, sometimes it's just a very quick, fleeting thing and whatever. With this, in this particular image, I just remember her skin tone, the dancer's skin tone, being absolutely sumptuous. It was something really beautiful about that, and I want to try and lift it so that I bring that back out. And I think it's going to be most noticeable in the leg. You know, her sort of pointy toe, leg pointing forward, which is where I'm going to get it. Up above, it's a little bit darker because that's how the light's coming in. And I might sort of lift the torso a little bit, but you can see there is a difference. The leg is lighter than the head and what have you. But I want to try and bring that out. Other than the sort of lovely scene of the Jardin de Luxembourg and those two figures behind them just sitting leg up, leg down, which mirrors their legs, the dancer's legs in a way, bent leg, straight leg, and that kind of thing. That's, you know, that skin tone is something that I want to bring about, if I can. As I say, this is going to be difficult. So first things first, let's just get straight into it. First things first, I go to profiles, and I'm going to hit that. That just gives me the metadata. Tells me Leica Summicron 35mm. Doesn't tell me. This is shot with an M10. Doesn't actually tell me that, but yeah, it just says Leica M. I've not updated my Lightroom. It's a slightly older version. Anyway, so there we go. It's got some metadata there. Next up, I'm going to go across to manual, and I'm just going to see if I can tweak these converging lines. And you see the dance base here, so that's all slightly off kilter. Now, I'm not looking to make it absolute and perfect, but if I can just bring it back a little bit, that's going to please me. And so first off, I'm looking at that, and I've got a feeling that I just need to alter it on a vertical level first. Maybe actually before I do that, a horizontal, just to bring the right hand side around to me. Maybe not. I thought that might help a little bit. Okay, vertical. So I'm gonna move the bottom of those posts of the bandstand further towards me. That's the idea. And there we go. That's, well, yeah. I would say that's probably about right. And then just maybe rotate fractionally? Mustn't be too much. It's just a... That's probably about it, you know. That's probably about it. Now, that's... I'm going to go to a crop thing there. Can I bring them... No. I thought I could. That's okay. No worries. I thought I could bring them slightly further down, but that's okay. Not a big deal. Okay, that's straighten things slightly. Let me just see if I can now rotate it. Because sometimes, horizontally, sometimes you have to do the vertical first. Not all that convinced, to be honest. It does help, but it's also doing a bit of unpleasant stuff in terms of, yeah, I'm just gonna leave it there. And as I say, it doesn't need to be perfect, but let me just see if I can maybe no, I don't. I'm not really. Rotate. Is that gonna help a bit more? Yeah. Okay. So that's that. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better than it was, and you know, that's just 35mm to 50. So 50 to, yeah, you know. So that's kind of gotten the verticals a bit more vertical, basically the converging lines, sorted out the converging lines. Now, I am not an expert at this at all. There's a million things here that I do not know how to do, and I am not remotely interested in doing. For me, what guides me is how I want this image to look. So in other words, I've learnt the things that are useful to me. I'm not the sort of person that loves to play around and, you know, go into all sorts of things and produce images that are superimposed and multi-layered. Just not interested. I want the essence of the photograph to remain. I really do. That's a massive thing for me. So less is more. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. So I'm not ever going to say that I'm a I don't use histograms. Now that's probably something I should do, but I don't. I go by what looks right to me. Just can't really say it any more than that. Can't really just go by the eye, and I think there's a lot to be said for histograms. Probably, I would imagine, but for me, you know, I would rather go by the eye. That's just me. That's just me. Is it something I should learn? Probably. But look, this works for me, so I'm cool with it. You know, if it wasn't working, then I would investigate it. But as I say, I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but it's very good for what I do, for what I'm looking for. So I let the image dictate to me what needs to be done and how I saw it, and how, more importantly than anything else, I want it to look. You know, I've got a very definite idea of how I want it to look, and I know that I can utilize everything here to get it to the way I want it to look. Well, I say that this is very difficult, but I should get it. I should get very close to it, and you know, a couple of weeks of just kind of moseying over it from time to time will tell me, yeah, I'm happy with that, or no, I'm going to rework it a little bit. So, highlights, let's go to the top. Highlights and shadows. That's the key thing here. Now, to begin with, I'm just going to bring those highlights down. I want to try and create a little bit of a flat image because this image is going to go into Silver Effects. Practically all my images go to Silver Effects. And what I'm going to use is going to bump up the contrast. So I want to create in Lightroom a fairly flat image, so that when it goes to Silver Effects and that contrast is bumped up, is zapped, whatever you want to call it, it's not going to blow as much. So it's preparing it for Silver Effects basically. So I'm going to go to highlights down. I'm going to go, obviously, shadows up, and immediately you can see what's going on here. Now I tend to go right the way up and then come back down. Then I can see what's really going on. Now, I still think that's a little bit dark, but I'm okay. Now, here is what I'm talking about. This leg. I don't know, I'm not sure what it was. Don't know whether she had cream on or something, but you see what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this beautiful, beautiful color. To me, it was just taken. You don't get it quite so much up at the top there. But as I say, I might lift that a little bit. We'll just play it by ear a little bit, or by eye even. Let's do that. Now that pink dress is also leaping out at me. And at this moment in time, what I'm looking to do is produce a correctly exposed color image. It's not going to remain color, but I like to always, with every digital color image I produce, I like, if possible, just to produce a tiff of a color image. Don't ask me why, that's just what I do. But I like to get all the values sorted, kind of, before I put it into, before I go to the black and white button here and desaturate it. So those values, those highlight values, you can see there's detail in there. So that's about as much detail as I want at this moment in time. That just looks about right to me. And then these values, well, yeah, that's looking rather flat. I've got her leg just right. Well, say just right. That's just right for now. Now, I've got the dodge tool here, which I'm going to use just to lift this chair, because this is an important value for me. Don't ask me why, I just love that chair being there. And I love the colour of it. Even though it's going to become black and white, I'm looking to export a TIFF colour image at this moment. What I might also do is just see what happens with that dress. If I just lift it a fraction. That's maybe a bit too much. Just bring it down a fraction. That's better. It's just degrees. And then the chaps' chinos. They're kind of blue chino-ish. And I know that the face and the torsos need a little bit of something as well. And I might just go in closer just to see what's going on, so I've got a better idea. She's got gorgeous braided hair. And I'm just going to bring out a little bit of that because I want a suggestion of that. I don't want it just going to black. I don't mind his hair going dark, you know, but I want a little bit of that happening, and maybe just a fraction more up here, and that's pretty much it, I reckon. That's fairly balanced. It's by no means perfect yet, but it's good enough as a TIFF to export in color, and that's just for my library thing. Export TIFF, that's good, and we're going to go to the values 50. That should be 300, and that's going to be absolutely fine as a brilliant. Okay, so now we're looking to go black and white. All my images are black and white. And there we go. Just hit the black and white thing. And then if I want to lift anything, I can. Oranges, I think her dress was orangey, well, I'd call it sort of flesh tone really, but I think Lightroom will interpret it maybe as orange, and it does. There we go. But that's too much. Too much. Okay. Then we're going to go blues. That's +4. Didn't really detect it. The blues were too dark. That's okay. Or was it -4? Something like that. Okay, that's cool. Now greens, let's just have a go with that, because those leaves on the trees were definitely green. And there we go, we can just bring those values down a little bit. And yellows of the floor maybe, oh, yeah, just a fraction, not too much. That's good. Now, I'm still very mindful. Black and white, desaturating something tends to knock out a bit of the bit of the detail. It is there, but it's not sufficient. And when I go into silver effects, it's going to, as I say, zap that even more, zap the contrast even more. So I need to find a way of just upping the exposure a fraction to try and allow for that. Now, without blowing the highlights. That's the trick. Let's bring those highlights. Yeah. Okay. So what I might need to do here, that's looking about right. That's looking about right. Highlights, midtones, and nice blacks, nice deep blacks with some detail in. So I'm happy with that. And I might, before I go into silver effects, just use the exposure and burn in a little bit of these details. These highlights, not being too prosaic, not being too, you know, it's not an exact science. It's just bringing them down a fraction. Let me just see what happens if I take them even lower. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Happy with that. Now I'm going to go into Silver Effects. Excuse me. Silver Effects Pro 2. That's nice. And all I'm going to do now is put a border around it. I'm going to do that. I'm going to go into it twice to produce this border. I just have a particular way of doing it. It gives me a sort of a border that resembles film. Well, sort of. You can do all sorts of borders in Lightroom, in Silver Effects, but this is the one I use. I just come down here, image borders, and I put in 4 straight away, and then I increase it to the maximum, and then I I just minimize all the gubbins on the inside. And that's probably a bit too large. Maybe something like that. And then I'm looking at the corners here. That's about right. I can vary what it looks like here, but that's okay. So I'm going to save that, and then I'm going to go to Silver Effects again, once that's closed, and go in Editing, Silver Effects Pro 2. That's nice, and I'm just going to finish off that border. Now, there might be an easier way to do this. As I say, I'm not an expert, but hey, this doesn't really take any time, so I'm not, there's 10 different ways to do every function, and there probably is a quicker way to do this. I don't know, but I've never found out what it is or inquired, because it's quick enough. It's not a race. I quite enjoy this process, and I've gone to 3 there that just fills in that white gap and gives me that distinct border. I do that first because when I put the grain in, I want the grain to go into the picture and the border, so it kind of bleeds in correctly. It doesn't look too that to me looks a bit bleh, like I don't know. When I do it first and then I go into Silver Effects for the 3rd time, this is putting the grain in, and it tends to marry the image and the border together for some reason. Just makes it look a little bit more integral. So now this is a little bit not controversial, but it might be controversial to you. I'm going down to my trusty old. It's what I do in, when I'm developing film. I push my film. Now, can you see? That's the first push, 1 stop, and that's pushing it 2 stops. Ouch. Things are becoming a bit treacherous here, a bit scary. But what this does is give me the structure that I love. And I don't touch this. I love this structure. The structure of pushing 2 stops. But what I'm going to do invariably is bring the contrast down, and immediately we're kind of, okay, whew, that's looking infinitely better. I'm also going to go highlights and just try and basically not get rid of the contrast, but make it not quite so vivid. I like contrast in my images. Anyone will tell you that knows me or that's seen my images, I like contrast, but not blaringly so. Not to a really exaggerated kind of lithe, no midtones kind of look. But that's probably about right for me. I've just lifted the midtones fractionally, again, I might just sort of go way up just to see what happens. And then slide it back down. I kind of almost want the floor of this bandstand to be the grey, to be the mid-tone. And the roof a little bit, even though it's lighter. But I want a sort of nice, stable platform of grey to be there. Now, I can maybe just go a bit more contrast, but I'm going to come back down again because no, it's sort of doing dangerous things. And I think that's probably about it, and I'm just going to go for it. That looks about right to me, and I'm literally just going by my eye and my values and those tones, just literally by eye. I don't understand presets because every image I do is always by eye. It has its own kind of look. It has to be treated the way it needs to be treated, and a preset just isn't going to do it for me at all. I'm just going to automatically, I'm going to go to the bottom of that dress, give it a bit of a, and that's good, that's perfect. I might lift the chap's shirt a little bit just to maybe give it a little bit of separation. He was quite dark, so that's how I want him to remain. When I say dark skinned, I mean. Now, talking of which, how am I doing on the leg front? Very mindful, and that looks beautiful to me. That looks beautiful to me. And have I got the hair still there? Yes. I'm gonna maybe just go in a fraction and lift that hair. Only slightly. Mustn't be too much. As soon as it looks like you've done something, you've probably done too much. It just has to be, again, I'm going to go up here, just see what it looks like if I go right to the top. Yeah, I'm just going to come back down a bit. And then I've just noticed the top of her arm looks a bit too light for me. It's just sort of, I've maybe done a little bit too much, and that's balanced it out. You see, I've just brought it down a fraction, and that's kind of it. I mean, I say kind of it, but pretty much it, you know. It's not finished, but it's the basic thing. All I'm looking to do now is well, tweak if it needs it. But if I go in, you can see there's grain, and that's what silver affects. It's not like real film grain at all, but it's as close as you're going to get. And for me, I can't bear digital, images that just don't have any grain in at all. The M10 is really good, relatively speaking, but it's still, yeah. So I'm pretty stoked with that. I say stoked. I'm not sort of trying to tempt fate at this point. I'm just, for the work I've done, I'm pretty pleased. I'm just going to burn in, put back a little bit of stuff here. That's good. I still want it to be a lot brighter than the two figures, because that's how it was. Not trying to change it. I'm just trying to retain what was there, and how I saw it. And that has to link up. Those two things have to link up. Now that is pretty much that. I will do other things to it, I'm sure, over time. But I'm just kind of looking around it, and I'm looking at the key things: her legs, the dress, the hair, little bit of detail, not much, and I'm pretty much okay with that so far. And this is probably the image that I will, I will now export it as a TIFF and as a JPEG. So TIFF, and then I'm obviously going to get rid of Lightroom and hopefully open it on my desktop, and it will, sometimes there's a slight differential, but it should be about right. But we'll see. Export as a JPEG as well, and that's pretty much. I'm pretty happy with that. I wouldn't say I'm jumping up and down yet, but look, it's not a million miles off. It's in that general ballpark place, and yeah, there we go. That will probably work for me. And then when it comes to a print, I'll just show you here. I've got my DNG in there, but what I typically do then, get rid of these because these are just from Silver Effects. What I tend to do then, just to show you, is I'll put that in there as well so you can see. Let me just remove that, and you can basically see what we've gone from. We've gone from the exported color shot, which is that one. Let's just let's get it so it's all open together. We've gone from this, if I can just, from this to this, and then if I'm happy with it after a couple of weeks or when I want to print it, I then put it into Photoshop and put a border around it. That's just the canvas thing, and that's ready for print, 12/16 print, and that should be good. And that's kind of how I go about doing it. No more, no less. So that's it. Not rocket science. Don't need to do an awful lot. I'm looking for a nice black and white print at the end of the day. Some nice deep blacks with some detail in. The highlights, just nice highlights and nice midtones. Just go by the eye, but I go by the eye, but that is informed by my recollection of that photograph, of when I did that day, and whether there was like I said, that emotional connection. Emotional, not so much in this case, but I did notice that her leg was just beautiful. There's something as well, I don't know what it is. I love, I think she was Afro-American. Seem to remember her being American. I'm not sure. The guy was French. But anyway, I love those two things. I think deep down somewhere I'm I'm fed up of black people talking about racism. You know, I want white people to be talking about racism. I want white people to be disgusted and appalled with racism. I want racism to be a thing of the past. And not only that, I think that, you know, the mixing of gene pools just from a DNA health point of view are critical, are absolutely paramount. So I'm just a big I'm just a big fan of you know, cultures mixing, and hopefully, you know, we'll all just end up being brown skinned. Then we'll probably argue about eye colour or hair colour or something. You know, I don't know. But one day we'll all be brown skinned and end of story. You know, shut up is my thing. Yeah. Don't want black people to have to be talking about this anymore. I want white people to stand up and talk about it and show and demonstrate their outrage, that and their intolerance of everything that goes on. We can't wipe out the past, but we can sure as hell make sure that today, tomorrow is right, and not, you know, people being mowed down in America by policemen. It's just like, I just can't even, you know, the outrage I feel with that is, and how it is, you know, yeah. That's another story. It's another story, but it you know, it needs to be sorted. Absolutely needs to be sorted. But I'm not. Yeah, I can't. Yeah, I need to do a different vlog for that. So you know, that I think that's possibly what, you know, I loved about this. What drew my eye to it, and the dance and I don't know. It's just a lovely day in one of my favourite parts of the world, the Jardin de Luxembourg. Don't know why. I could sit there every day and walk around, and it's just a photographic paradise apart from anything else. It's just utterly beautiful. The light is always gorgeous, even if it's not sunny. I don't know. It's just a very beautiful place. In any season. Don't think I've visited it once and it's been unpleasant, and I have been there out of summertime, and it's still beautiful. Less touristy, but still beautiful. Anyway, that's a little bit about how I go about doing my workflow, about printing, about getting a print ready for printing. Don't know if that's useful or not. I hope it was. Said I'd do it. One or two people have asked me to do it, so here it is finally. You know, as I say, I'm not an expert. I think I'm very good and adept at doing what I need Lightroom to do for me. But I wouldn't say I'm an expert. Far from it at Lightroom. I just know what I need to. I know everything in there that allows me to get the image I want. I couldn't tell you. There are a million things in Lightroom that I've got no idea about, none whatsoever. But I don't have any yearning to know about it, because why do I need to learn that stuff? You know, there are other things I know about that I've demonstrated here today in the vlog, but you know, I have played in the past with it and seen what does, and all the time I just come back to my one simple thing. You know, if it's a digital image anyway, Lightroom, desaturate, do as little as possible, not because I'm lazy, but because the image should dictate that I'm doing very little to it. The moment I start thinking, oh, I've got to cut it up and, that's an image that, gets discarded. Not because I can't, but because I want to retain the integrity of the image and of myself. So I don't want people looking at it and going, that's a lie, he's superimposed that, no, I just want to tweak it to get it to its best. If it is more than tweaking, no, it's defeating the object, and it feels wrong. It starts to, it feels like a lie, and therefore, no, not prepared to do it. Not because I'm a goody two shoes, not because I am holier than thou or anything like that. Far from it. Something about it makes me want to say, well, that's pretty much what I saw. That's kind of what I saw. I've argued with myself about I don't do it when I've used a 50mm lens, but with a 35mm, doesn't matter how careful I am, I just always seem to get converging lines and things are slightly off kilter. But for me, there's a line. There's always a line to be drawn, and I think that nobody sees a black and white image, do they? That's not what they saw. They saw a colour image, whether you're shooting on film or whether you're shooting on digital or anything. You're seeing colour through the... So, you're using black and white film. I still have hang-ups, some hang-ups about tweaking it. But, hey, I could argue that I could have just left it like that, and I think it's a strong enough image that could be left like that. I wouldn't have any qualms about leaving it like that, really. I'm talking about the angles, but look, maybe in 2 weeks' time that's exactly what I'll do. I've sort of tweaked it in that respect to such a small degree that it's not, at this moment in time, it's not keeping me up. It's not. So, yeah, but we'll see. I let things permeate. I let things. I mull over things. That's what the 2 weeks are for. A week, 2 weeks, a month, or whatever, just to see what I feel after that time. See if there's anything else that I want to do or I want to not do. Just weigh it up, and then it'll go to, as I say, it'll go to print. And this one already has gone to print. I've just used this as an example, as quite a difficult. It wasn't that difficult, was it, in the end? But it was potentially difficult. It was potentially going to rear up some problems. But anyway, I'm waffling now, so hopefully that was interesting. Thank you very much for stopping by. See if the next one. The next one, I think, as per request, is going to be zone focusing, hyperfocal distance focusing. Yeah. So yeah, look out for that one, and cheers for now.